And I'm Jeff Barn. Welcome to the first debate between the Democratic candidates to win the 9th Congressional District. We also like to welcome listeners tuned to WTKK 96.9 FM Talk, which is also airing tonight's debate.
A full report of the day's news, weather, and traffic will immediately follow the debate. But first, quick look at today's top stories.
Lawmakers held a public hearing today following a rash of pharmacy robberies around the state. The maker of OxyContin, a very powerful painkiller, asked the state to approve tamper-proof prescription pads, and a state task force is working on a way to stop the crime wave while continuing to make the medication available to patients who desperately need it.
But the stories we're following 6 months after the murders of 2 Dartmouth College professors. A law enforcement source is telling the Associated Press the most rational theory is that they were victims of a burglary gone wrong. 2 Vermont teens with a history of burglarizing homes are charged with killing Huff and Susanna Zentop in January.
A Dorchester woman with hepatitis C and HIV says her doctors told her without a liver transplant soon she will die, but her HMO will.
An impressive victory in Game 1 of this brief 2-game series against the Jays. And the Red Sox battling their way back in this one and winning it 5-4. Derek Lowe able to pick up save number 19 of the season. And Derek, as Jerry mentioned, recently saying that he'd love to have a 1-2-3 uneventful bottom of the 9th inning, and that's exactly what he has here on a flyout and a pair of strikeouts to end things in the 9th inning. So a fine victory tonight for the Red Sox as they continue this 4-city trip. And after taking 2 out of 3 from the Montreal Expos, they now have taken the first game of this 2-game series against the Toronto Blue Jays. And what a night for Trot Nixon. Nixon able to tie it with a base hit and put the Red Sox on top with a base hit as well. Garcia's the winner, 3-0. Billy Koch the loser, 1-3. And the save for Derek Lowe, his 19th, the 5-4 win for the Red Sox.
Taunton. Party primaries are set for September 11th. The final election will be on October 16th. We won't know until next month who has officially qualified for the ballot. Because of the unwieldy number of people who have said they may be candidates, we here at WB56 chose to limit this early forum to elected officials who currently represent portions of the 9th District. At least 2 potential candidates, former federal prosecutor Bill Sinnott and housing activist John Taylor, have vigorously protested that decision. You can learn more about their protest on the newscast immediately following this forum, and we look forward to providing appropriate and fair coverage of all legal candidates as the campaign wears on. Now, let's begin our debate. Our panel includes Senator Brian Joyce of Milton. He served 1 year in the Massachusetts House before winning his Senate seat in a 1997 special election. He's an attorney and graduate of Boston College and Suffolk Law and chairs the Senate's Committee on Public Service. Welcome, Senator Joyce.
Thank you, John.
Also with us, Senator Stephen Lynch of South Boston. He's an attorney and a graduate of Wentworth Institute and Boston College Law School. He served 1 term in the House before winning a special election to the Senate in 1996. He is chair of the Senate's Committee on Commerce and Labor. Welcome to you, Senator Lynch.
Thank you, John.
Senator Cheryl Jakes of Needham is with us. She's held her Senate seat since 1993, an attorney and graduate of BC and Suffolk Law School. She currently chairs the Senate's Committee on Post-Audit and Oversight. And welcome to you, Senator.
Thank you, John.
Rounding out our panel tonight, Senator Mark Pacheco of Taunton holds degrees from the University of Massachusetts and New Hampshire College, as well as a master's in public administration from Suffolk University. After 2 terms in the House, he was elected to the Senate in '92 and chairs that body's Committee on Natural Resources and Agriculture. And welcome to you also, Senator Pacheco.
John. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Now, the format is simple. 1-minute responses for each candidate to our questions, followed by a period of open response and rebuttal. Seating and response order was determined by a very exciting drawing just moments ago. So let's get to our questions. And Senator Pacheco, you'll lead off here, and we'll go right around the horn. There are voices on both sides of the abortion debate who would like to change the Roe v. Wade standard legalizing abortion in the first trimester and alter the rules about who has access to that procedure. How late into a pregnancy do you believe abortion should be allowed, and should minors be required to obtain parental consent before abortion is permitted? Senator Pacheco.
I think we should leave that decision up to the woman, John. Between her doctor, her religious leader, to make that decision. And once viability has been reached, then only in the cases of life to the pregnant woman or health of the woman would I be in favor of moving forward. In the issue of parental consent, I am for at least one parent being involved with that decision for a minor. It is a major medical decision, and I do believe that a parent should be involved as long as there are no other issues involved, for example, incest, etc., then that would be a problem with me. I think that the courts need to be involved with that for that decision.
Time, please. Senator Jakes.
You know, John, I've always supported the principles of Roe v. Wade, and that's why I've carried in the Senate for the last 10 years the bill that would codify the protections of Roe v. Wade into Massachusetts state law and make it the law of this state as well as the law of the land in case anything were to happen on the federal level. This is a very, very private, personal decision to be made between a woman, her partner, her husband, her doctor, and her God. And there's no room for government in that decision, and I will fiercely fight to defend the principles of Roe v. Wade. When it comes to parental notification, let me tell you, I used to be a prosecutor. I protected kids who were abused. I prosecuted people who abused their children. Some of those were the parents, sadly. You know, I wish all children came from a home like mine where they had great parents and they could go talk to them about any problem. Not all kids do. We have to recognize that, and that's why we can't have an across-the-board mandate. Those children may be coming from a home where the parent's doing the abuse that's impregnating them. We have to recognize that.
Just to be clear, after the first trimester, should abortions be allowed?
Roe v. Wade speaks to that.
Okay.
What it says is if the life of the mother's threatened, the doctor intervenes. It's up to the doctors to decide, as it should be.
Okay, Senator Joyce, or excuse me, Senator Lynch, I beg your pardon.
Thank you, John. I'm a pro-life candidate, and I think that the most objectionable part of the abortion debate is around the so-called partial birth abortion or late-term abortion. That's actually allowable in terms of limitations. Is actually allowable under Roe v. Wade, so you wouldn't have to overturn Roe v. Wade. I think that's why a lot of the debate in Washington right now is about partial birth abortion. And just to be clear, I would vote against. I would vote to limit partial birth abortions, late-term abortions. I also think that for minors who are seeking an abortion, I think that parental consent, if both parents are custodial and are part of that child's life, then both of those parents should be part of that decision.
Okay, sir. Senator Joyce.
Thank you, John. It is clearly a very difficult issue, and I think a lot of good people are on both sides of the issue. I've grappled with it extensively myself. I have my own personal and religious belief, but I've come to the conclusion that I can't impose those beliefs on others. As a congressman, I think government does not have a right to interfere with that very personal decision that a woman and a woman alone can make. I do also oppose the partial birth abortion, except if the life of the woman is at stake. But the interesting thing is we spend a lot of time talking about kind of staking out positions and failing to really listen to each other. Frankly, I think people on both sides of the issue could learn from one another, and together we could seek to reduce unwanted pregnancies, to educate our children, to promote adoption. With respect to the judicial consent,
your time's up, but just very briefly, parental consent.
Yeah, the current law allows a child to go into court and bypass parental consent.
Okay.
In some of the situations the senator referenced, I support that.
Okay, now we have an open period. If any of you would like to rebut or respond to something you've heard, jump right in there. Any of you? No? Then I'll move on then. That's your call. Let's continue. The late Joe Moakley continued to, you'll lead off here, Senator Jakes. Sure. The late Joe Moakley continued to march in the South Boston St. Patrick's Day Parade, even after the organizers of that parade won a bitter battle to exclude gay groups from the event. Will you march in that parade if you're elected, and do you support or oppose granting the full legal right to marry to homosexuals?
You know, I support anything that stops discrimination, and I oppose anything that allows discrimination. I've spent my whole life as a prosecutor, as an assistant attorney general, as a senator, making sure that there isn't discrimination. It's why I've led the way in the Senate, fighting for civil rights for all folks, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of their race, regardless of their ethnic background. It's why I led the 1996 fight for the Hate Crimes Act, to make sure that no one out there is terrorized or injured because of any difference. We've got to stop poking at our differences and come together as a community. I think that if
what their playing experience is and what they want to get out of it, if they just want to go out here and shoot around and have some fun, or if they're really competitive.
Happily join them in doing so.
And the legal right to marry?
I think all people should have a right to marry. I think that to be pro-family is to support all families out there. Our gay families, our non-gay families, our children. We want the rights and the responsibilities that come with marriage for children and for couples.
Time, please. Senator Lynch.
Sure. In terms of the St. Patrick's Day Parade, frankly, that's a celebration of Irish culture and Irish heritage. And I think that the organizer of that parade wanted to keep it, the veterans, a traditional parade, and they wanted, and I think the Supreme Court of the United States agreed that it was a matter of free speech for them to say within their parade what they wanted to say. I think the Supreme Court voting 9-0, supporting the veterans for what they wanted to put in their parade, for those expressions they wanted to make, were entirely within their First Amendment rights. And personally, as an Irish American, I would march in the St. Patrick's Day Parade if I had a broken leg, quite frankly. And I'm proud of my culture. I think there are gay people in that parade every year, to tell you the truth. I don't think that they prohibit anyone from marching. I think that gay people take wonderful pride in their own parade, the Gay Pride Parade in Boston.
Time, sir. Legal right to marry, though, very briefly.
I would support I think that we have to figure out how we're going to treat our brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, cousins who happen to be gay. And I think that we need to welcome them with full rights into society. And please let me finish. You can take time away later on, but I want to finish this answer.
Go ahead. Just make it brief, please.
And I think that we need to recognize some type of civil union to allow gay people to have similar rights to heterosexuals.
Senator Joyce.
I mean, I recognize the Supreme Court has indicated that the organizers of the South Boston Parade have the legal right to discriminate or preclude a particular class of person from participating in the parade. I strongly disagree with them. I abhor any form of discrimination whatsoever. For that reason, I would not participate, and frankly have not participated in the parade. In the Massachusetts Senate, I have been a leader in the effort to provide domestic partner benefits for our gay and lesbian employees. I'm married, I have 5 children. But if I were gay, I'd make less money. That's just an unfair form of discrimination. My benefit package would be less. It's incredible to me that in my lifetime we discriminated against persons because of their color. In my children's lifetime, we're discriminating against persons because of their sexual orientation. It's simply not right. I oppose it. I always have, always will. With respect to civil union, I see...
Time, sir.
I support it. I support a civil union, no non-discriminatory reason whatsoever to oppose allowing monogamous people to, certify their relationship.
And Senator Pacheco.
I support a civil union. I support domestic partnership type of legislation that is pending. I certainly would fully support that legislation. I would also support the right of any organizer of a parade or whatever to be able to express their own freedom of speech. While I may choose to agree or disagree with how they choose to express their freedom of speech, I certainly disagree with a lot of freedom of speech that I see out there, but that's the country we live in. We have it's a great country. People can speak their mind and express themselves the way they would like. If I was asked to participate in the South Boston Parade, I certainly have participated in the breakfasts just about every year. I enjoy meeting with people from South Boston. I would participate.
All right. Anyone wish to jump in, rebut, respond, add a comment? Let's continue. That's your call, folks. Senator Lynch, your turn to lead off here. Affluent parents can buy their child's escape from failing public schools. Voucher programs, some argue, would also give low-income parents the option of using their own tax dollars to buy a private or parochial education. Should they have that option, and if not, why not? Senator Lynch.
Sure. I think if we were to adopt tomorrow a voucher system, let's say vouchers so that people could leave the public schools and go to private schools at will, leaving the good schools and the bad schools, I think we would dismantle completely the public education system in this state and in this country. And for that reason, I cannot support any of the voucher proposals that I've seen, and I cannot imagine any voucher program that I would support. I do support the idea of an education tax credit that would be available to both private and public school parents so that they could defray and write off some of the cost of education, because whether your child's in a public school or a private school, if you're paying for computers, if you're paying for software, if you're paying for MCAS remediation,
Time, sir.
you should have the right to write that off. That's a cost of education that I'd like to see deductible.
Senator Joyce.
I have and always will vigorously oppose the vouchers in the public schools. I'd oppose any effort to divert money from our public schools to private schools. You know, Mary and I have 5 children, 3 of them are in the public schools. We know firsthand the importance of public education. We also know firsthand, frankly, they're always wrestling for extra dollars. As a state senator, I have worked very hard to increase the state aid for education coming back into my district. It was the reason I first ran for the legislature, and I've had great success. We're going to have 6 brand new schools built in my hometown, and new schools built throughout the state through my budget amendment. But you know, the pressure is not just on parents, but on grandparents. We have a lot of people watching this show tonight who want good schools for their grandchildren or their neighbors' children, and yet they're on a fixed income. Their property taxes are through the roof. They've had 6 or 7 Prop 2.5 override votes.
Time,
and
sir.
we need to continue to fund the public schools and not divert any funds to our private schools, which would hurt the kids and hurt the taxpayers.
Senator Pacheco.
Well, one thing for sure, John, on this issue, you can see that I will be the type of congressman that will not be doing some kind of poll to see where the public stands on this issue. I have always voted against public aid to private schools. I've voted against and led the charge against charter schools that have private entities that are managing the schools, because those monies have been coming away from our public education system in Massachusetts. I have served on a school board for 10 years and have worked very hard on public education for over 22 years. I know that the current system continues to need improvement, continues to need investment. We are doing that here in Massachusetts. We need to do much more in the Congress.
Time, sir. Okay, Senator Jakes.
I'm opposed to vouchers. I think that would drain resources away from our public schools that are desperately needed. And that's why I've fought in the Senate for more money for our schools, education technology money to put computers in our school. And in Congress, I want to fight for more teachers, to have smaller class sizes. I want to fight for the money to repair our dilapidated school buildings. I want to fight for after-school and preschool programs. And you know what, John? I don't want to stop there. I want to take to the national level what I've done here in Massachusetts, pass the first and only in the nation student loan tax cut, so our families can afford to send their children to college and then have some help at the end of that debt tunnel. This year, it goes into effect. Our students get to deduct 100% of the interest on their student loans. That's a great program in this state. I wrote that law. I fought for 2 years to bring people together to pass that law. It's the first bill I'll file in Washington, so we have a national student loan tax cut for all our families.
Surely, Senator Lynch, you started a you co-founded a charter school. Surely you want to address some of the comments here.
I think that charter schools are part of a solution. They aren't a panacea by any means. In my situation, in my district in the city of Boston, there are precious few schools that are really excellent. There are many schools that are underperforming, quite frankly. And parents needed another choice. So I actually rolled up my sleeves and started a charter school. And it actually offers special emphasis on math and science, which, if you look at the economy, that's where a lot of the good jobs are coming from high-tech and low-tech companies that need students with sound and strong foundations in math and science.
Rebuttal, anyone?
Yeah, John, quite frankly, and I certainly respect my colleagues here who are participating in this forum, but charter schools, whether it was back in the House days with Senator Joyce voting to increase the cap, or the increase the cap with Senator Lynch, I'm not sure what Cheryl did on the charter schools. Maybe you'll tell us. But I have been adamantly opposed to moving forward in that direction, the way we finance our system. No matter what anybody says, what we do right now is we divert money away from our existing public education system, and that is wrong.
Responses from either one of you?
Well, let me just say I agree that I wouldn't divert a penny from the public schools to private schools, and frankly, of the 4 candidates, I have the highest rating by the Mass Teachers Association on public education. I'll take second to nobody in my efforts to improve the public schools. It's why I ran for the legislature. I was running against a 30-year incumbent who was faced with this funding formula that was killing many of the suburban towns, and essentially said there's very little any one person could do. I said, you know, there's a lot one person can do if he's doggedly determined and creative, and I've done it. The increases in state aid to my district are, I think, second to none.
We have to break, but you have 30 seconds if you want it, Senator Jay.
Sure. You know, let's keep in mind that charter schools like the Horace Mann School are public schools. So when we experiment with them, which I don't have a problem with trying to learn from innovative new ideas, we're experimenting with public schools and playing by the public school rules. What I don't support is sending any public school money to private schools under any condition. That's a whole different ballgame.
Take a break. Go ahead.
Well,
Very briefly.
Just want to follow up on 2 quick points.
Briefly, please.
Firstly, on the charter schools, I offered an amendment on the floor of the Senate to make sure we have the same conflict of interest laws, the same laws for all the private entities that are running these charter schools. Couldn't get the support on that. That is a very important point. We need to make sure our public tax dollars are being watched the same as they are with our public educational system. And just one final point, John. On the Mass Teachers Association, we can't just take into consideration this year and last year. I have the longest and best record when you take in the collective look at voting for teachers in Massachusetts.
Brief rebuttals, anyone? Let's take a
yeah, I mean, I think we're you know, nipping around the margins here, but in the Senate, I'm 100%.
Okay.
I did support some expansion of the Horace Mann Charter School when I first got into the House.
40%?
No, it was a little better than that.
I think it was 40 or 50%.
I got the highest, well, whatever. But clearly education, we are at a unique time in our nation's history, frankly. It's not only the most important issue in Norwood and Dedham and Walpole, but it's also the most important issue at the state and now in Washington.
All right, you all can pick up on this in our next segment, but we have to take a break. We'll continue with our 9th District Democratic Congressional Forum in a moment. Stay with us.
Hey, nice rock.
My Jeep Grand Cherokee's taking me to the great outdoors.
Good idea. You'll never take that thing off-road. You should get an Isuzu Axiom. It's designed for the real world. 2 suspension modes, 230 horsepower V6 for $1,300 less. Brake lights. And it's got America's longest warranty.
Thanks.
When was the last time going online was this much fun and this quick? Now it can be. Just call to get Verizon Online DSL. Sign up today.
Academic studies.
That was probably the most difficult decision that I had to make. I gave myself a reality check, looked back, stepped back real quick, and looked to see what I had to do well. And I'm looking to go to med school, so I know my GPA is going to have to be really, really competitive. So I just stepped back and realized that was the best fit for me at the time.
So Aaron Campini's once established routine has been sidetracked by aspirations of a successful medical practice. But that doesn't seem to bother him one bit, as Aaron can always regain that niche on the field.
DSL. To get your first month free and everything you need to get started. Plus a free PC camera when you sign up online. When was the last time an offer this good fell into your lap?
Verizon.
Want more from a sport utility? Test drive the all-wheel drive Subaru Outback. More ground clearance than a Ford Explorer Sport. More cargo space than a Jeep Cherokee. More miles per gallon than any leading midsize SUV. Add a smooth car-like ride and you have a sport utility with a whole lot more. Outback, the world's first sport utility wagon.
Get $750 cash back on all 2001 Legacy and Legacy Outbacks.
Do you love your job and does it love you? My Bob's Discount Furniture is growing like gangbusters, and I need people with a passion for success. I need salespeople and office staff to work in my...
Looks like you got a little nick there. What, this? It's nothing. Maybe we should get it looked at. Or maybe we should go get a delicious Mike's Hard Lemonade instead. You're on.
She did not approve by any stretch of the imagination, but she also didn't know until the end who it was. Shonda dropped hints, as was her way. And so I think in retrospect, of course, I mean, when, you know, her father would say, you know, I wish I knew more. I wish, you know, because, you know, really, it was her mother who really knew. And
berries! That's it! Introducing 2 new Breakstone's Cottage Doubles, blueberry and raspberry.
I'm a genius!
Take it from Stephanie Altland, our resident health nut. Turkey Hill frozen yogurt is creamy, healthful goodness. Imported from Lancaster County.
Cadillac, the summer event. The best time of the year to drive a new 2001 Seville. Call for important lease details. Don't wait.
Boston's WB
in the morning.
Weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. on Boston's WB.
Lean back on this sofa and love seat, and you'll think you're sitting on a cloud. It's that comfortable. With reversible pillows and your choice of dozens of fabrics. And I can offer you a cushy finance rate of 9.99%. Come on down.
And now, the Democratic congressional debate continues on WB 56.
Welcome back to our live forum. Let's continue with our questioning. Senator Joyce, you lead off here. Here's a question off our WB56.com website. Denise writes, the U.S. House this week passed a proposed constitutional amendment prohibiting the desecration of the American flag. Would you have voted for or against?
I would have voted against. The great thing about our country is our freedom. Democracy means freedom, and the greatest manifestation of our freedom is through free speech. The Supreme Court has interpreted that free speech to mean including desecration of the flag. As abhorrent that might seem to you or to some of the listeners, you know, it's one of the great things. It's truly the greatest symbol of how free we are in this nation. Even though we love our country, and many of us love the flag because it represents our nation, we also love our freedom. And people that disagree with us have an opportunity to display it in a nonviolent manner. I think, as Thomas Jefferson said, perhaps the most precious gift of our democracy is free speech, and I would always fight to protect that free speech.
Senator Pacheco.
Well, I quite frankly wasn't there when Thomas Jefferson said that, but let me just say that there is no way I could bring myself to vote for in any way that would allow for the desecration of the flag. I mean, I know it happens. I know it's a matter of free speech. When I attend Flag Day ceremonies, when I attend the veterans ceremonies, and we hear our national anthem played, you know, that symbolizes everything that's great about America. And I just think, you know, it's wrong to desecrate the American flag.
Senator Jakes.
John, you know, my dad was a Korean War veteran and a commander of the American Legion, and he taught me that the flag's a symbol. It's freedom that we covet and we cherish. And that's why I would have voted for against the amendment, because you know, it's freedom we need to preserve. And the way we do that is we support and honor our veterans. And that's why I filed the bill, to help our veterans wives, their spouses, have the consistent property tax exemption. A woman came to me from Natick. She had nursed a disabled veteran husband for 30 years. After he passed away, the state sent her an insulting letter saying they were taking away her property tax exemption. I learned this from the Gold Star Wives and veterans groups. I immediately filed a bill. I brought veterans from all over this state together in the Gold Star Wives to stop that, to let those wives, let those spouses maintain the property tax exemption. That's the way we honor freedom. That's the way we honor our veterans. We take care of them.
And Senator Lynch.
You know, all across this Commonwealth, all across this country, there are veterans' families there who have lost their loved ones in the wars of this country. At the end, when those veterans are buried, they're given a flag, the American flag. And that represents to those families the pride and the life that has been lost. I would have voted this week in favor of an amendment to protect the American flag. I think that's a symbol of respect to the veterans who have given their lives, made the supreme sacrifice so that everyone in this room, all of us here, can enjoy freedom. And I think that's the least we can do for our veterans, is to give respect to the flag.
Rebuttal, anyone?
I mean, you mentioned the late Congressman Moakley. I mean, perhaps the last of the greatest generation of politicians. My father is part of that generation. He fought in World War II. And you know, what they fought for, respectfully, I would disagree with my friend. I think they fought for the freedom to burn the flag. As disgusting that is to a lot of people, it's freedom. And that's what they were fighting for. My children and their children, God willing, will continue to be safe and free because of their efforts. And I would absolutely have voted no.
Go ahead.
I just think that, you know, I just think that, look, as a country, the American flag represents a lot of things to a lot of people. And I just think we should honor our flag, honor the men and women who have died in its service. And frankly, I have no problem with taking one symbol, the American flag, and raising it above all others.
Go ahead.
You know, John, here's my concern. I think this is a distraction, and I question the motives of those who want to do it, because everybody's talking about the flag rather than talking about our military. You know, better compensation for our men and women who serve our country, better housing so they're not living in dilapidated housing. You know, get them off food stamps. You want to support the military, you want to honor our veterans, you do things like the bill I filed to make sure that, I think it was Lincoln who said, you honor our men and women by honoring their family and taking care of their family. You know, focus on really helping these men and women who have sacrificed their lives for our country, and let's not get distracted with this discussion, which keeps everybody from focusing on the real meat and potatoes of serving our country.
We go right back to the question, though, John, and we can bring in other issues to try to divert the attention away from the question that was asked. You know, do we or do we not? Would we or would we not vote to make sure our flag is not desecrated? That's the question. Certainly, you know, I support all of those other, you know, things that were just talked about by my good colleague Senator Jakes. But the bottom line is, the question was, do we or do we not support the amendment that was before the Congress?
And I think everyone answered it. See, I don't think that is the question, John. I think people are trying to suggest you're not. I think people are trying to suggest you're not patriotic. You know, my dad's a Korean War veteran. He's a past commander in the American Legion. And he says freedom's what matters, not the symbol. No one should question our veterans who fought and put their lives at risk, who share the belief that this is a distraction, so that the real work of government, helping our men and women in the service, funding them, giving them careers that matter so we don't have, you know, people leaving the military because it's just a dead end for them. That's what we all should be focusing our efforts on.
Go ahead.
Look, we can support a strong defense and still support the American flag. You don't have to choose between one or the other. You know, we can support veterans, we can support their pay, we can support the housing programs that we should, but that's not the question. The question is, do you support an amendment that would protect the American flag? And I would.
Anything further, or should we move on?
Just move on. I think the point is well taken that we're kind of elevating perhaps sometimes form over substance, and you know, I think we're okay. I count the votes 2-2. Okay. I'm against, and you know what? Every one of us is I'm certain, patriotic.
That's right.
All right, let's continue. Business doesn't always speak with one voice, as you all know, but many business people in the 9th District have made their views clear on one subject. Logan Airport, they say, needs a new runway to help maintain this region's economic competitiveness. I believe it's your turn to start, Senator Pacheco. Will you fight or support the runway in Congress?
I'm going to take the same position that Congressman Moakley took on this issue. I know Joe, supported economic development and supported the city of Boston as the economic engine, not only for Massachusetts, but for all of New England. And he fought hard to bring in economic development, not only here in the city of Boston, but all the way across the district, right to Taunton in the southern tier of this great district. But he also paid attention to the neighborhoods. He wanted to listen to what the people who were impacted by Logan had to say. And so, John, listening to the neighborhoods, listening to what I've heard so far, I would be opposed to the new runway.
All right, Senator Jakes.
Jen, one of the things I've tried really hard to do in the Senate is bring diverse points of views together. This shouldn't be a neighborhood versus business. Of course the state needs economic development. We're a world-class city. We need a world-class airport. But, people have lost sight of the fact that all the studies show is another runway isn't going to solve congestion. We're still going to have the same backups, the same problems. So I think that's a quick fix that's not going to work, and that's why I don't support it, and I would stand with the mayor and with the neighborhoods. Here's what we should be looking at, in which I've asked my committee, the Senate Post Audit and Oversight Committee, to look at. Peak pricing. What can we do to change patterns so these planes fly at different hours for cheaper prices? There are a lot of travelers, myself included, who would be happy to travel on off hours to pay a little less and free up congestion. Are we using our regional airports around this state? Worcester's dying for more airplane traffic. They want the tourism, they want the economic development, the business that comes with airports. Don't look for that quick fix that imposes a hardship on our neighborhoods. Solve the problem, and there may be other ways to solve it. That's what I'm looking for.
Senator Lynch?
I don't think we disagree on this. I do agree with the Senator that you have to look at a transportation plan in the long range. And all of the projections are saying that even if we built this runway, which I have opposed for a number of years now, even if we built this runway in 7 to 10 years, that capacity is exceeded, and now we're looking for what? Another runway? This isn't that's not good planning. I think that the improvements in rail, it used to take 10 hours to take the train to Washington, D.C. It now takes 5 on this new train. I also know that the capacity of Manchester Airport and T.F. Green have also quadrupled in the last 15 years. So I think we need to look at a regional solution, but we also need to try to come up with some innovations and use some other locales for airports.
Time, please. Senator Lynch. Senator Joyce, excuse me.
Brian A. Joyce
Beg
from
your
Milton.
pardon.
I'm a candidate for the 9th Congressional District. Thank you very much. I had my first trip the other night down to Washington, D.C. to meet with a couple of national organizations. We were supposed to fly out at 7. We left the runway about 10:30. I said, "Oh my God, what am I? Be careful what you're hoping for. This is perhaps my future if we're successful." Clearly, the answer is not an additional runway. The theory of traffic generation, which applies to automobiles, applies to airlines as well, where the Senator referenced in 7 to 10 years, the traffic problem would be perhaps even worse. We do need to focus a little on regionalization, get the small airplanes to some of the other airports, but we also need to focus on public transportation. The economist Bob Kuttner had an interesting piece in the Globe this past weekend where he talked about the federal budget surplus of $160 billion. If we took $2 billion, or 1/80th of the federal surplus this year, we could address our public transportation, our rail improvements that are necessary throughout the nation. Incredible. So we need to invest. Our trains are no better in 2001 virtually than they were in 1901.
Since you've mentioned trains, I'm going to delay our break for a moment here and throw out another question. I believe you lead off, Senator Jakes. The MBTA's Fall River commuter rail line has been dormant for years. Many environmentalists in your district want it to stay that way. Do you support or oppose reviving that line and its proposed extension to New Bedford?
Well, two questions. One, the plan has to be environmentally sound, of course, and two, it has to be cost effective. I mean, if the studies show that two people are going to ride it in every day and it's going to cost us, tens of millions of dollars to support it, I think we find an alternative way of public transportation. If the studies show, however, that this is a link for Fall River into the city and vice versa, and we can transfer workers and get people to school and to their jobs, and we can find an environmentally sound way, which I'm certain we can if we work hard enough, I think we should support it.
Senator Lynch?
I think it's really addressing the issue of sprawl and inappropriate development. I think that the fact that people are sitting on the expressway for a couple of hours every day, coming in and going home, is all a symptom of a larger problem. We have to work out the ability to tie the job base, these families, into the economy. And I think the only way that you do that is by having an effective and affordable transportation system. We cannot leave the families in New Bedford and Fall River stranded from jobs in other parts of the Commonwealth, and we have to link up, I think, our labor base with some of these technology centers where the jobs are good paying, and we've got to have an affordable way for people to get back and forth.
Senator Joyce?
The answer to this question is no. The MBTA has proposed changing the route. It had been going through Attleboro. Now they're talking about going through Stoughton, through Canton, and through Easton, through this 9th Congressional District, through some extraordinarily sensitive environmental areas. Also, the cost estimates have risen exponentially. They've talked $500 million. I'm hearing $700 million. I think, frankly, I'd be dead and buried before that line is built. We have a cost-effective means to do it now. It's buses. It's as quick, it's cheaper, it's faster. So the answer to the question is no. Clearly, we need to improve the public transportation. The effort being proffered by the MBTA, which would cause some serious problems in 3 neighborhoods in this district, cause serious environmental problems, is not the answer.
Senator Pacheco.
Well, I live right there. I live right in the heart of where it all takes place in southeastern Massachusetts, and all 3 alternative routes go through the middle of my district. And I have publicly supported the extension of commuter rail in general to the rest of southeastern Massachusetts, because it impacts in a positive way the infrastructure issues that we've talked about, the commuting issues that we've talked about, productivity issues with the business community, with citizens that are sitting on the highway for 2 hours or 3 hours or more in the morning. I came in this morning. It was 2 hours in the middle of traffic. So my point is simply this: it has to be done in an environmentally sound way. That the right route has to be picked based upon the environmental sensitivity. But there are only 3 alternatives. One of those alternatives have to go forward, or we will have, we think we have a mess now. We will have...
Anyone want a brief rebuttal?
It will be unbelievable.
Just one thing I think it's important to note here. It's important when we're talking about MBTA service that we remember all our citizens. And the MBTA has overlooked the disabled for a long time in this state. I discovered that over 100 communities, the MBTA was not providing the ride service for the disabled. I led the effort on the Senate floor to put the funding in place to demand that the MBTA provide the ride to all our communities and all our disabled who are dependent on that to get to their jobs, to get to their doctors, to get to school. So when we talk about MBTA, we want them to do this project right, environmentally sound, cost effective, but we want them to do existing service, including for our disabled, correct.
Did you want to respond?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that the MBTA can do. I mean, Stephen and I worked on an effort in Dorchester. We're going to have 4 brand new Red Line stations: Ashmont, Savin Hill, Shawmut, Fields Corner. I've helped restore the trolley line from Mattapan to Ashmont. There's a lot the MBTA, frankly, is doing right, and I want to give them credit. I oppose this line, however, which is not cost effective, bad for the environment, and frankly isn't going to happen in our lifetime. Let's move on and address it in a cost effective, environmentally sensitive manner through buses.
Okay, just for the benefit of our friends over at WTKK, we're going to continue on without a break here to give us a chance to cover more ground. I'm going to move on unless it's really pressing. You can return to that later if you want, Senator. I think you start with this one, Senator Lynch. None of us is perfect. We're all human. We make mistakes. I think the key to success, a lot of people might agree with this, is how do you learn from your mistakes and benefit from them? What's the biggest mistake you ever made in your public or private life, and what did you learn from that experience, Senator Lynch?
Sure. That's an easy one for me. I've recently been charged in some of the publications here with not paying my student loans for 4 months. The entire truth of the situation is this. I had 9 student loans during the time that I was attending college and law school. I've paid my student loans for over 17 years, paying back my student loans. I've made 204 payments for my student loans. And for a very brief time last year, for 4 months, I missed my payments during a difficult time in my family, financially and otherwise, and I made a mistake. I made a mistake. I fell behind on my loans. Since then, I've repaid all my student loans. Please let me finish.
Okay, briefly, please.
I repaid my student loans in full. All of that particular one, I have one left that remains to be paid, and I've paid every last penny. It was my fault. It was my fault. That's a mistake that I made. I do want to say, though, that I'll be a strong champion for families who are facing the same difficulty in terms of paying for their own child's tuition. But I think that, in fairness, I should be measured by the 17 years that I paid, not necessarily the 4 months that I missed.
Senator Joyce.
Well, if the question had to go with what were the biggest mistakes or the greatest accomplishments, I think, in my personal and private life of some such thing.
I think it was about mistakes, not accomplishments.
I like to focus on the positive, John. You know, I suspect I've not made my biggest mistake yet, either in my personal or public life. And, you know, I clearly have, you know, no shortage of weaknesses, and clearly we always try to learn and grow. I'm blessed with a wonderful family, and my most important responsibility, frankly, is as a father and as a husband, and I think I can always improve in that regard, and as a son. In terms of my public service, you know, I don't have too many regrets, frankly. I've taken some tough stands. You know, I'm happy to take the heat. You know, I suspect I'll make some votes that I wish I could have back and do over, but nothing really leaps to mind.
Time, please. Senator Pacheco.
John, I would say it has to go back to the gay rights issue for me. Back when I first came into the House of Representatives, I made a mistake. I was told that we would have all kinds of litigation with the passage of the gay rights bill that passed in the early, well, I think it was 89, 90, my first term in the House of Representatives. And I took a look at that bill at the time. I listened to what everybody said about the litigation that was going to come in as a result of it, and I voted against it. And I look back today, and it's always, you know, hindsight's, you know, always 20/20 when you look back on a decision you've made, and I've certainly cast hundreds upon hundreds of votes during that period of time. But that's a vote that I regret. I think it was the wrong decision then, and I can't wait to go to the Congress so I can argue for that same bill on the floor of the House of Representatives in the Congress.
Senator Jake's biggest mistake, what you learned?
John, there isn't the biggest one. We all make mistakes. I make mistakes. You know, I see them as learning opportunities. I always try to look back and say, okay, what can I learn from that? How can I do better? So I always see it as a positive, because we're all human and we're going to make mistakes. And then I turn around and say, hey, how can I fight harder for education? How can I fight harder for health care? How can I be a leader on gun control? How can I address the individual concerns of the people I have the privilege of representing? That's what I do. I try to learn from my everyday experiences, good or bad, how I can be a better representative, a better voice, a better champion for the people I have the privilege of representing.
Follow up, anyone, or shall we move on? Let's move on. All right, Senator Joyce, you lead off here. Speaking of, you know, mistakes and morality, certainly Joe Moakley held moral stature in this district for many, many years. And I think people do look to public officials to some extent to exemplify good morals. From our WB56.com website, Jason wants to know, what would you tell Congressman Gary Condit if you ran into him in the hallway as a fellow member of Congress tomorrow?
Tell him to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, immediately. Help this poor woman's family, recover their daughter, And frankly, I'd be tempted to say, get out of the House. But I think that's up to the voters in this district. But, you know, as a parent, as a colleague, as a human being, I would tell him, my God, man, tell us everything you know. Tell the police, forget about the press, forget about the public. Tell the press, tell the police and this poor woman's family everything you know, so that, God willing, she can be found alive, and if not, the family can at least get some peace.
Senator Pacheco?
I think everybody throughout the country, and anybody who's been following the story, is mostly concerned with the whereabouts and the health and safety of the young woman. And I think I would reach out and try to, say the same thing. Listen, talk with the family, talk with the police department. Let's make sure that we can react to the situation and try to find out what has taken place to the young woman. I know the family must be, just beside themselves.
Senator Jakes?
Tell the truth. Cooperate fully with the police. Help bring this family peace of mind.
Senator Lynch?
I think it's a terrible tragedy, not only for the Levy family, but also for the congressman's family and the people around him. I'm sure they're deeply affected. I probably would say nothing to them. I probably wouldn't be my place, to tell you the truth, but it's just a terrible and tragic situation.
All right, let's move on, and we're back around to you again, Senator Pacheco. Please name one time that you voted against the Senate leadership on an important issue and explain why you did it.
There are a number of times that I could mention, John, and I'll mention a couple. One was on electric deregulation in Massachusetts, an issue that the leadership and the majority of the members of the Senate obviously passed. We have electric dereg in Massachusetts. And I knew from reading that legislation that there were loopholes in that bill, and citizens in Massachusetts would be paying a higher price tag for energy costs as we move forward. And don't you know it, it's happening. About a 40% increase in gas alone has been allowed to just shift right across to the bills of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts citizens. And it was wrong then, it's still wrong, and I fought that in the Massachusetts Dairy Compact, which impacted farmers in Massachusetts.
Time's up, let's move on. Senator Jakes.
Probably the most significant was the anti-aid amendment. That was to make sure that there would be no opportunity to drain public school money away off to private schools, to preserve and make sure that our kids came first. The vast majority of our children will graduate from public schools. They will be what has made this country, the entrepreneurs, the CEOs, the laborers that have made us the greatest country in the world with the highest standard of living in the world. So to make sure that our public schools were protected, that was a big leadership vote, and I made sure that I put the public schools and our children first and education first.
Senator Lynch.
The most stark example of my vote against leadership, actually, while I have many in the Senate, was in the House. There was a vote on going to a different rules reform, a different session calendar, which, frankly, when I came to the House of Representatives, the members there, none of my present colleagues included, the members there had just voted to have an increase in their salary. When I arrived, they had a rule reform which would have allowed them to take 5 months off every other year and to change the session calendar. I felt that they had just voted in a raise and now they were going to work 5 months less. I voted against that. The final tally on that vote, not only against leadership, was 151 to 1, because I felt I was right. And I stood up not only against leadership, but every other member. And,
Okay, let's leave it right there. Senator Joyce.
I've never been afraid to take a tough vote. And, I don't work for the Senate President. I didn't work for the Speaker of the House when I was in the House. I work for the people that elect me, and I'm very, very clear on that. And there have been a whole host of issues that have opposed the leadership on the transfer tax, that was going to impose an automatic tax on all homeowners when they pass papers, rather than leaving it to local option how to best decide how to pay for this legislation. But the toughest vote I had and the best vote I ever had was against the death penalty. All three of my colleagues have supported the death penalty. I was in a special election, not quite as high profile as this, but very high profile, and the poll showed 80 or 85% support for the death penalty. I was told if I voted against it, I'd lose. I voted against it, I won. I was nominated for a Profile and Courage Award. I knew that I had done the right thing, and interestingly, the main proponent of the death penalty weeks ago came around and said, you know what, I was wrong, and I'm against it.
Any rebuttal, briefly?
John, I think you're asking, will we stand up in the face of tough opposition? You know, I fought a 5-year battle. I led the fight against the NRA in the state for what is the toughest gun control law in the country. And I got up every day and step by step and day by day with hard work, brought coalitions together, legislators, lawmakers, physicians, parents, to make sure that we beat back the efforts of the NRA to flood our streets with guns. That's about standing up for what you believe
Responses?
Yeah, just one
Briefly.
final thing, John. I think what you're talking about is, do we take political polls to figure out which way we're going to go here on different issues? And I can tell you that I have not done that. What I've done is I've taken a look at the issues, made my decision, and moved forward.
That's the second time you've mentioned taking polls. Are you referring to anyone here on the platform?
No, I mean, they can speak for themselves. I'm just saying that the bottom line here is that far too often today, everybody's trying to figure out where everybody is on an issue. I can tell you, when we first started the privatization debate, the polls were overwhelmingly for the Weld plan. Overwhelmingly for the Weld plan. And I took a look and saw what was taking place. Fraud, waste, abuse, corruption in the system. I took that on. I fought it. I worked with organized labor in Massachusetts, and we got that beat.
Okay.
And it got done.
I think you made your point.
And the poll got flipped around.
Go ahead, Senator.
Well, I have an issue that I'm kind of bucking the trend on right now, where for every buck we spend on home care, we're spending $10 on nursing homes. I've filed an equal choice bill which would allow senior citizens to receive the same level of care for which they're eligible in a nursing home in comfort and with dignity in their own home. It's against the current administration. It's against the current policy of both branches and of the health and human, the executive administration. I think, frankly, all four of us are willing to take tough votes and stand up for what we believe in.
We've got just about 30 seconds left. I'm going to give you a last chance, Senator Lynch.
Well, sure. I think you can realize that there are always those occasions when the principles of a person outweigh the consequences. And I think I've shown that in my history in the legislature, and they'll certainly see that in the Congress.
That's going to do it for our time. Thank you all very much for participating. Thanks to our friends at WTKK-FM Talk 96.9 for simulcasting tonight's debate. Stay tuned to WB56 News for continuing coverage of this important congressional race. I'm John Keller. Thanks for watching, and stay with us for the latest news, sports, and weather here on WB56. Good night.